Hello everyone, it's DJ here. I'm still at Fort Knox and I had an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. One of the Physical Evaluation Board Liaison Officers, or PEBLOs, was willing to let me interview her and get some insight into how medical boards work and the duties of the PEBLO along the way. She asked me to use a different name, so in this video that you're about to see, you'll hear me refer to her as Mrs. Wales and not by her actual name. I also did not record, as far as video recording, the actual interview. I only recorded it in audio. So when you see this, I will have a picture of her represented by the building out in front of the IDES the sign out in front of the IDES building. And, as for me, I'll put, one of my favorite icons, Old Bill, the cavalry icon. So I hope you find this to be an informative and entertaining interview. Here we go. Mrs. Wales, thank you for appearing at the RC Retirement YouTube channel, even though I'm not actually going to show your face.
You're welcome.
Before I get into any deep sorts of questions, just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you start off? How did you end up here? I'm sure you weren't sitting in a high school classroom thinking, one day I'm going to be a PEBLO.
Actually, no. I was in the military myself, got medically discharged, and that was my goal, to become a PEBLO, because I'm still fighting the VA myself after 18 years.
Oh, wow. So your own experience led you to travel this path?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. All right. So, a little bit of curiosity. After you left the military and started, how long did it take you to get here?
Well, because
I'm sure you didn't just walk through the door and say, I want to be a PEBLO.
No. I was married to an Army veteran. Well, he was still in the military at the time. We had to travel, of course you have to move from place to place, and so it took me a few years to get into the government system, and I just kept trying, and eventually got into one position at a lower grade and pay, and just worked my way up.
Oh, wow. How long did that take?
About 10 years.
Wow, you were persistent. So what are your typical responsibilities as a PEBLO?
I counsel soldiers on their medical board findings, and then when they get their ratings back from the Physical Evaluation Board, I counsel them on that. And I'm also a point of contact for service members while they go through this process.
Well, thank you. In a sort of Cliff Notes version, if I'm going to say it properly, simple language, what are the basic steps involved in IDES? What is IDES and how does it work?
IDES is the Integrated Disability Evaluation System. It's where the Army and VA have come together to help service members get their disability ratings at the end of the process, and ultimately to already have a soldier enrolled at that time when they get out, the veteran, with the VA closest to where they're going to be at, so that they don't have to wait years for their first appointment. So, and it all starts out with the soldier getting a profile, and at that time we start collecting all administrative documents, medical records that is needed and required for the board to go on. Once we get all of that, and they have to have 2 signatures on the profile to be into the IDES system. Once we have all of that, then we get their documents ready and send that to the VA representative. And once he gets those, is military service coordinator. He is the POC for the VA side of it. So the Army doesn't cross the VA line, and the VA does not cross the Army line. So PEBLOs are POCs for the Army, and the military MSCs, military service coordinators, are POCs for the VA side of it. Once he gets their documents, he will counsel the soldiers And then after he gets all the paperwork back, we'll set up the appointments with the VA. So all appointments are through the VA. Once those appointments are done, they come back to the Army, and they use that to write up what's called a narrative summary, which is basically describes all of the medical conditions the soldier has written down and requested, says has incurred or gotten worse while they've been in the military. And it explains all of that. Because the Army is concerned about conditions that they cannot do their military job, and the VA is concerned about all of those that they got.
All the problems.
Yes.
Okay.
Once we get those results, like I said, it goes to the Army, who writes up the narrative summary, and then we have to type up documentation, brief documentation about the conditions, whether or not they meet retention standards or not, and if they don't, which chapter they're found in.
Which chapter of
AR
Army regulation?
Army regulations, AR 4501, it's usually 330 or 333, one of the two. It'll be listed in the paperwork.
Okay.
And it'll state when it occurred, if it occurred while in service on orders, or if it existed prior to service, and if it did exist prior to service, was it permanently service aggravated to make it worse? And that's all listed on the paperwork. And then once we have all that, we counsel soldiers on the findings. They have certain elections they can make, and depending upon all of that, eventually the case goes to the physical evaluation board, who is the one that makes the determination if the soldier is fit to continue military service or unfit to do military service. If they are found, usually either way really, but if they're found unfit, then it goes to the disability rating service, who is affiliated with the VA, to get the ratings done. Once they get their ratings, they send it back to the Army to type up the Army rating, and it comes back to the PEBLO to counsel soldiers on both the Army and the VA ratings. And once all of that, there are certain options and elections soldiers can make again, and eventually they're either found fit or can get out.
Wow, that's pretty long. How long does this normally take?
Supposed to take no more than 295 days. Lately, it's been going about 6 to 9 months from start to finish.
Considering the first time I learned of disability evaluations with a friend of mine, it took him 3 years. 6 to 9 months isn't bad.
Probably went through the legacy system, which is the old system, which is now an option, but you only rely on the Army and not the VA is not involved at all. Now with the VA involved, it makes it a faster process.
Really? That's completely contrary to all the, what's the word I want, all the conventional wisdom about the VA.
This process, because they put everybody up ahead of everybody, that's why it makes it faster, because to help them, if they need help, to get them out and they'll get the help from there. For example, your mental health conditions, a lot of times the stress of the military can make it worse. When they're out, they don't have that stressor, so it can help in that aspect.
I see. Okay. Do you help reservists too, or just active duty personnel?
We help anybody that they assign to us. It does not matter, National Guard, Reserve, active duty. Whoever we get is who we get.
Does anything differ if it's a reservist versus an active duty service member? Or is it all the same?
The only difference is if the orders that they have to be put on. If it's a reservist, they have to be put on orders to come down to make sure that if anything happens when they travel, that they're covered. But other than that, no.
Okay. And for an active duty guy, it's just go.
Right.
Or you're now stationed here, do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say someone is considering IDEs, if it's even a choice. What general advice would you give for someone who is going through medical issues? When is IDEs the right choice?
When all medical care has been exhausted and they can no longer do their military job properly as a soldier. It's a hard turn in life, but just continue to do what the doctors say. And if you can't do it anymore, you just can't.
And when you say not do your military duty, that includes all the basic soldier skills of
yes.
Use your weapon, fitness tests, not just your
MLS.
day-to-day job, your
Correct.
MLS. Okay. I'm sure you'll enjoy this one. I like to do myth busting. What sort of typical myths and misunderstandings are there about medical boards, IDEs, any of that? What can you clarify or myth bust for us?
That we will put them in the warrior transition unit. That's not upon the IDEs. That's upon the commanders. Other things is that we're not here to help soldiers, when in fact that is totally false. We are definitely here for soldiers. We try to make this process as painless as possible.
Now, you mentioned warrior transition. So that's something I haven't covered yet in any of my series. Would you briefly describe what that is?
Warrior transition was established to help soldiers who need medical help, that if they have a lot of medical appointments and need help with either a medical appointment or coordinating them or whatever, that's what the warrior transition is for, is to help soldiers with their medical care. And if, after a certain amount of time, if they are not getting better, that's usually when they go ahead and get put into the IDEs process.
And warrior transition is a physical location, a unit to which they're assigned.
Correct.
And I know what became more of a recent development was the community-based warrior transition unit. That seemed to be more for reservists rather than active duty. Is that correct?
I want to say yes. You don't hear that one much anymore. That's for soldiers, example, who have cancer, need to be at home for help with care and all of that. That's what the community-based ones were designed for.
Okay, but neither of those are your lane.
Not anymore.
Yeah, and
they used to be.
Like you said, that's one of the myths that you'll be assigned there when that's not true.
Correct.
Okay. And the other thing you mentioned was a myth that you are not here for helping soldiers, when that's actually the opposite case.
Correct.
All right. Are there any other strange myths out there?
Not that I can think of at the top of my head.
All right. What are the most common mistakes you see service members make as they try to go through IDEs?
That they think we have all their medical records when in fact we don't, because it is the soldier's responsibility to make sure we have their medical records. We will have medical records to justify the conditions they're being put in for. That's how the whole case gets started. But it's the soldier's ultimate responsibility to make sure that we have all their medical records, to include dental records, to help their case.
So you'll have, for example, any records that the soldier's unit might have.
Correct.
Most likely, but civilian doctors or any other specialists, they need to get for you.
Correct. We have a lot of the ones that are electronic now. We do have the Army electronic systems, but we don't have access to civilian ones unless they have been put into the Army system.
I could make all kinds of comments right now about the modernization of medical record practices, but I won't. Well, I asked this question during a briefing you gave earlier, but I'm going to state it again for the audience. I ran into an individual, a master sergeant, an E8, who had 36 years of service and had, because of the number of retirement points he had the equivalent of 19 years of active duty. He had a 20% Army disability rating and was offered a severance. Now, just this morning, I did a YouTube episode on the effects of taking severance pay. Obviously, I advised this individual not to do so, and that was his intent, not to do so. So what safeguards are there in place now to prevent this sort of mistake from happening? I know there'll be the occasional fluke, but what general safeguards are there now?
For the PEBLO, to make sure that all the conditions are on there. There is another election that should have been on there. It's called going into the retired reserves, so that when you reach retirement age, you will start getting your retirement pay. And if that was not on there, then that case should have been returned back to the PEB, Physical Evaluation Board, for them to put it on the document. And also, if someone has 15 or more years of active duty service, they can do what's called COAD, continuation on active duty or continuation on active reserve, which can get them to their 20 years if they're approved, but it has to be approved through HRC.
And, well, actually, I was going to ask about COAD and COAR, or however you pronounce that one. So let's go ahead and jump onto that. That can apply for both an active duty member and a reservist, correct? So if you have 15 years of reserve service but want to get to the 20-year mark, you could actually stay in a reserve component for 5 more years. Is that correct?
If they approve it, yes.
If approved.
Yes, there's it's called COAD or COAR, continuation active duty, continuation active reserve. There is a checklist that the PEBLO will have that they should give the service member sometime in the beginning of the NEB process so they can go ahead and start getting those 6 letters that are needed to be along with the packet.
Just in case.
Yes. Yeah, because it does happen. Actually quite a bit, and I don't blame those that do it after 15 years. You're that close, you might as well give it a shot, try to continue.
And that would essentially let them serve within the limits of their profile.
Yes.
Until they've hit 20 years.
Yes. Only, but like I said, only if it's been approved. I've seen it approved and disapproved.
How long does approval or disapproval normally take?
It can be within a few months. It can be 6 months. You never know.
Is it best to apply for that consideration at the beginning of IDES, or wait until you have a rating and a determination otherwise?
You cannot submit it until after you get your rating.
Okay. Could I get a copy of those checklists?
I don't see why not.
Okay. I like to post as much additional information with my episodes as I can. We can sterilize it, of course.
They do change, and things change, and you get it a little bit further after it's changed, so it can change from during time. You never know. Just like anything else in this process right now.
Of course. Yeah. I heard on a podcast that I was listening to earlier that we should really change one of our ever-present cliches. You know, the only constants are death and taxes, but really we should add change to that.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, so death, taxes, and change are the only constants. And let's say someone's going through medical board procedures right now, but they're weirdos like me and they want more information. Where can they go for more information in addition to calling their PEBLO at 2 in the morning?
Good luck at getting hold of them until 10 in the morning. Really, PEBLO's, any IDES center should have the information. PEBLO's supervisor of PEBLO's have all the up-to-date information, and they're actually the experts because they're the ones working cases, and if changes are made, they're notified. But you can try Chief of Patient Administration. You can try them, but they don't even know the most up-to-date releases with the IDES process.
And that person works where? Over
the hospital clinic within MedAct.
So whatever military treatment facility is co-located with PEBLO's?
Yes.
Then it sounds like that might not be a good resource.
No, usually it's the PEBLO's that are the best resource because as soon as information needs to be updated, we're notified.
And don't trust what you read on the internet?
Oh, no.
Unless it's my site or Adopt Milk. Well, let's go back to COAD for a moment. Are there specially trained people to help service members with those packets, or is the PEBLO the best assistance they can get?
Right now that I'm aware of, it's only been the PEBLO to help. Now, if the physical evaluation board sees there's an error, they may return it and say this needs to be corrected and resubmit it. But it's the PEBLO who is ultimately responsible to make sure it's correct.
Make sure the COAD packet is correct before it goes to HRC.
Correct.
Okay. Well, believe it or not, I'm almost done. In fact, we might as well say I am, unless you have any other points that you'd like to make. Then I would say, what other words of advice would you like to offer people who are either going through medical boards right now,
or think that might be a possibility in the future?
Make sure if you have any medical condition, you have it documented in your records. Also, if you're going through it, if you have questions, contact your PEBLO rather than talk to other personnel, because
Barracks lawyers and the like.
correct. Because each case is different. Granted, they may have the same conditions, but it can all be different in the outcome. So the best person to contact would either be like this IDES. Each IDES center should have JAG legal services, so you could contact them or the PEBLO. Legal services has some of the information, but not all of the information.
Now let's say that this is a member who is not going through any sort of boards right now, but thinks that might be a possibility. Are they allowed to contact the MEB Council, the JAG, for that? Because they wouldn't have a PEBLO they could contact. Are they allowed to reach out to your lawyers, or is there somewhere else they should go?
That one, they can try reaching out to lawyers, but they only deal with the medical boards. They don't deal with any other legal issues, just medical boards. If they have questions about the IDEs process, the best thing to do would be contact the IDES center to find out more information.
Whichever is closest to them.
Correct.
All right.
We've even had people call different states not close to it.
Well, I would imagine, at least for National Guard or reserves, or Army reserves anyway, that their health services people should be able to reach out to an IDES center somewhat locally and get information.
They should. There are medical personnel who are POCs that we communicate with, but not everybody listens to rules and regulations.
Oh, how I know that one. I get at least several times a week, rather than having units contact me, I'll have individual soldiers calling me, and I work at the equivalent of a division headquarters.
Yeah.
So, how often do privates call people at division? Not in the regular Army.
Yeah.
But what do? At least in my case, I just answer the question and move on.
All you can do.
All right. Well, Ms. Wales, thank you for joining me for this what's now become a 24-minute interview, but we still finished ahead of time. So thanks again for your time and your expertise.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Like I said, I went through the old system, and that's why I'm still fighting.
Yeah. Would you say that what they have now is better?
Oh, yes. It's a much better system, because when I went through, you had to wait till you were out to go to the VA, and that took over a year to get an appointment, and if you had to move with your spouse, if they were military, then you would have to wait until you got to the next TV station to do it.
Oh, wow. Well, see, it's already better.
Yes.
Well, before I digress and start asking more questions, let me go ahead and close. Thank you once again, and have a great day.
My pleasure. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's it for the PEBLO interview. I hope that was useful information for you. If you believe this is useful and could be beneficial to someone that you know, then please hit the share button in whatever format you're listening to or using, be it YouTube or the podcast, or, well, you wouldn't have a written article because that's coming later. So anyway, if you think this would be useful, please hit the share button and send this to whoever can make use of it. If you like this site, this channel, this podcast, and want it to continue, then please subscribe, hit the like button on YouTube, hit subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. Make use of all the resources on the rcretirement.com website. I believe they'll be quite to your benefit. If you have questions, concerns, comments, flames, just wacky, predictions, please go down to the comments section and send me your thoughts. Also, if you have questions or concerns that you think I might be able to address, please send them to me either by email or in a comment, and I'll be sure to get to them right away. As always, I thank you for being part of this audience, and for helping this effort slowly grow. It's been quite a labor of love, I must say, but I thank you for being with me along the way. As always, thank you for your service. Have a great day.